Hello class and welcome to the week 11 lab assignment where we'll be completing in the labs lab 1 automating a savings calculator located on EX 679 through 681. We'll be completing part 1 for this assignment. You will need student data files for this assignment, and in Doc Sharing, we'll be locating Lab 10-1 Community Credit. Select on the Doc Sharing tab at the top of our class, and then select the Student Data Files link. As you scroll down through the list, you're looking for Lab 10-1 Community Credit. You'll need to save and then open this community credit data file. Once you do that, you'll see that the file will look like this. Now let's turn to our e-textbook to the lab page on page EX 679. As we scroll down on that page, we are looking at Lab 1, Automating a Savings Calculator. For the note, we've just downloaded the student data files from Doc Sharing. The problem situation is Community Credit advises customers how they can reach various financial goals, including their savings goals. The savings calculator shows you how much money can be saved in a 12-month period of time. That's depending on your initial deposit and your monthly deposit and your interest rate. So we're going to create a calculator to determine this. And to do that, we're actually going to start working in Excel and creating a macro-enabled workbook. So let's run through the steps. In step 1, if you don't have a developer tab displayed on your ribbon in Excel, so we'll need to go to File, which is, when we go to File, it's called Backstage Mode. So when I click on File, this is called Backstage Mode. Then I'll want to select on Options. And under Options, we are then going to want to click on Customize a Ribbon. On the right-hand side, under Main tabs, you'll want to make sure that you have the Developer tab actually checked on. So if your Developer tab is not checked, you'll need to check it and turn it on. Then simply select OK. As we look back at the assignment directions, we are then going to make sure that we enable macros. And here in the Developer tab, we're going to be looking at the Macro Security button. And we want to enable all macros. Let's look at that now. So I now have the Developer tab. And you'll see that I have panel sets for code, add-ins, controls, XML, and modified. In the code group, I have macro security. And here I can enable all macros. You'll see this says not recommended and potentially dangerous. After we complete this assignment, we will set this back to disable all macros with notification. While we're completing this assignment, we'll enable. We are disabling when we're completed in case you downloaded something off the internet inadvertently and you may not always want it to automatically run. So we're going to enable the macros and say OK. As we look back at our assignment directions here, we are going to insert a control button, which again is in our new tab, the Developer tab, in the Controls group. And so we're going to add a command button, and we're going to draw that button in row 20. So as I look at my sheet, I see row 20 is here at the bottom of my savings calculator. In the Developer tab, when I look at the Controls panel group, there's an Insert tool with a pull-down arrow. I have Form Controls and ActiveX controls. Again, when I hover my cursor over any one of the tools, you'll see the tooltips display. I'm looking for the command button ActiveX control. I see that here now, which I've just selected. And now in row 20, I need to simply now draw out my command button. As we look back at the assignment directions, we're now turning to the next page and looking at step number 5. With the command button selected, we're going to open up the properties and we're going to change some things about the properties, like the caption, which that's the name on the button, and we're going to call it Enter Savings Data. We're going to change the font and the font size and the print object and word wrap. So let's look at some of those properties quickly. As I look here, I have my command button that I just added. It is selected. So now on my developer tab, I can select in my controls group properties. The properties menu will appear and you'll see that we're going to change some specified things. The first thing we were going to change is the caption. And the caption again, we're changing that to is Enter Savings Data. So I'll type that in now. Very good. And then the next property we're going to change is the font to a Listen to Sans 9-point. So I'll locate the font. And I do have an option here to click on the pull down. And I'll simply, in my font name field, I'll start typing Lucinda. And now I will be able to go right to Lucinda Sans. And for size, I'll simply select 9. Then I can say OK. The next option we're going to change is the print object to false. So we're going to locate print object, and again there's a pull down arrow here, and I can select false. And for word wrap, word wrap we're going to say true. We do want to allow the words to wrap. So in the pull down arrow, I'll select true. Then when I'm finished, I can close the Properties panel by clicking in the red X in the upper right corner. Now on step number 6, again with the command button selected, I want to press and hold and make sure I'm really looking at the code. So I'm going to right click. Then we're going to enter the code that we see down here in figure 82B, which we see here, 82B. Now, I'm a little older than perhaps most of you. I had a little hard time seeing this. So to make it easy for you, you'll see how I'm going to do this. So I am going to adjust my button a little bit. With my command button here selected in row 20, I'm going to right click. And when I right click, whoops, let me try that again. I'm going to right, I guess I need to try that again. My developer, I'm in design mode, and in the developer tab, I'll go to view code. Let me walk you through that again quickly. With my command button selected, I'll click on the developer tab, which is our new tab, and in the controls group, I'll select on view code. And now here I have my code window for this sheet. Now, I pre-typed this in, and I'll tell you, I had to use a magnifying glass. I'm going to make this a little larger for you to see. And I'll change the page layout to landscape so you see each of the lines. And now I'm going to make this area. Make sure that each one is on its own line. The only thing you want to be aware of is this row here is really just all one line. So this is all one line, just like this is all one line. So here you can see the code that you are copying. And here we're looking at a range of cell C4 through C6, which, as you know, means we're looking at C4, C5, and C6. and it says clear contents. That means in the Excel spreadsheet, when I actually click on enter the savings, so right here I see C4, C5, and C6. Whatever values are entered here, well, when I click on the run savings, it's going to clear this out. And once it clears it out, it's going to look at range A1. And again, as I look at range A1, that is where I am simply looking at setting and selecting my data. For range, the initial deposit is actually this field here. You'll see my name box is initial deposit. And in C5, you'll see my name box calls this monthly deposit, which we see monthly deposit here. And then we have rate, which we have the name box for rate. We see rate right here in C6. And what we're looking at is putting in a value into each one of these boxes. So I want to enter a value in C4 and a value in C5 and a value in C6. And so what I'm looking at with that input box, which is going to pop up, which when you see it in action, this will make a lot of sense to you. So we're going to have an input box that will pop up and open. And the text that's going to display on that input box will say initial deposit. And then you need to enter that amount. And then that's where the user will have their input. The display on the input box pop-up will be monthly deposit, and then you'll have to enter an amount for that monthly deposit. And then it will say interest rate needs to be entered as a number only, no percentage. And that's where we're going to then divide that by 100 for figuring out the percentage, the interest rate. And sub is just ending my code there. And so I am going to take this code to make it easy, whereas I have already typed this, so now it's your turn to type it. You can pause this video if you'd like to read this code off of this screen if it's a little easier for you. Don't forget, this is a period here after our operator here. So I have periods here, not commas. So watch your quotes, your periods, because all those spaces, any one of those are missing, you'll have an error in your code, in your script. So on my button, in code view, and as a reminder of how we got there, with my command button selected, I clicked on the developer tab, I selected view code, and here in my code box is where you're going to type that code in. And once you type that code in, we are progressing right along through our assignment. And again, just to emphasize, you need to really check that code carefully. So then we can exit the design mode. And when we exit the design mode, we'll be able to run and you'll be able to see that script in just a moment. Now I'm going to ask that you change the sheet tab name to your month and date of birth, followed by community credit. So the tab name is, you want to make sure that you have your month and date of birth. Whoops. I have this locked. None. Bear with me here. So my sheet is temporarily locked with the video going. And please just bear with me for one moment as I am completely locked. Right. I am very locked up right now. Do I have another window? I do have another window open. No. Going back to my window, and I have really stopped myself here right in my tracks, which can happen. And when that does happen, which it does happen from time to time, where I really need to close Excel and relaunch again. That may happen to you, or once in a while, maybe you can't enter data or you're hung up on something. Sometimes you need to actually exit Excel and start it all over again. So I'm going to relaunch Excel, which is a little slow going here. And while that's doing that, I'm going to put the code back up again for you to see. Again, be very careful of making sure you have the right quotes, the right spacing, your ending parentheses, and that this is actually one line here, one line all the way across. And did our Excel open for us? Still opening a little slow. Well, you'll be able to fast forward this video in just a moment. Oh, hello. I just had an inaccurate. I renamed my command button. So, okay, where am I? Back here, and I did it again. Okay, so back where we were. I had inadvertently changed, as you see here in the formula bar, for my command button. Ah, silly me. So back into view code, I put my code in there. I accessed view code from my developers tab. And as we look back at the assignment directions, then we're going to enter our sheet name. And this is where I messed up last time. So when I enter my information here, it's my month and date of birth followed by community credit, renaming the tab. Previously, when I thought I was renaming, my command button was selected and I was typing that information up here, which ultimately when I added that up here, it created this error message. I failed to see that I had been selected on my command button, and that's why I was getting my error. So I needed to undo that and leave the original command button as it needs to be for that function. So now we've renamed our tab, and as we look at the next step, we're going to use our newly created button to display the information. And before we do that, I kind of missed a previous step and bypassed it to purposely save it for this step. When I go to save my work, File, Save As, and you will do as always. Find your save location. Where do you want to save your file to? Once you save your location and give it a name, and your work should always have your full name in it. And as we see, save as type. We need to change that type to be an Excel macro-enabled workbook. You'll see the file extension is XLSM. So now my file save as type is an Excel macro-enabled workbook. Then you can click on Save. Now as I have my workbook opened, I can click on my command button and it doesn't do anything. But on my developer tab in the controls group, when I see that design mode, you can see that's currently selected. I can turn design mode off, and when I do turn it off and then I hit the command button, now my macro will run. So per our textbook, the initial deposit is $2,500. And the monthly deposit per the textbook was the first example of $150. You can see that data being put in here for us. And in the first example, the interest rate was 2.5. Remember the note here, no percentage sign needed. Remember the no percent? So I just type in 2.5 and OK. Now here I have all of my data that's entered, and it automatically does the calculations for me. So I can see in a 12-month period from where my starting balance, where I deposited $2,500, and every month I just went and added in $150 because that was my monthly deposit. So into a 12-month period, I'm able to see what I will have that I have deposited plus my interest rate. So if I earned 2.5% interest at a 12-month period, here's my total ending balance. Then I need to go to the Developer tab and View Code. And here you want to make sure that you're going to add this code onto a new sheet. So I copy that and I'm going to add a new sheet. And you're going to want to give a headline here. Code script from first scenario, and you'll be able to format your cells and do all that good stuff. You remember formatting by now, so I'm going to I'll just merge and center for now, and then I will do an alignment. I'll paste my code in there, and then I can start to align. And this is, again, all stuff that you remember as far as doing your merging, your alignments, and all of that great information. So I will put that in there, and you'll go ahead and format this text. So I should be able to see your code that you used in the first example. And then you'll be able to also copy this, and you'll be able to paste this over into that first example as well. So you'll be able to do as always, copy, and I can go to the next sheet. And as we always do, we'll be able to paste it. You'll need to adjust your columns, because remember when you see the pound signs, that means the columns aren't the right width. So, and I didn't copy everything. You want to make sure that you copy this data so that I can see that you executed and completed that. Make sure you're not just typing the numbers in, because I will also be checking your script. As we go back to our original sheet here, we then have another example to complete per the textbook. And the next example that we're looking at is then running an initial deposit of $500 with a monthly deposit of $200 and a rate of 2%. Remember, don't type that percent sign in, because that's one of the prompts that we have. So when I then click, I can now do the next equation for enter deposit, and that's where we can go through. I'll say, was it 200? I think the initial deposit was actually 500. So I'll need to rerun that, enter savings. The initial deposit was $500, and the monthly deposit was $200. And the savings, again, with no percentage, is simply 2%. You'll need to do the same thing and add another sheet. You copy this over along with your code, just as we did in the previous example. So just as we did here, you'll follow suit with the same thing, copying that over. When I am finished, I will go back to the Developer tab in the Code group into Macro Security, and this is where I'm going to come back and disable all macros with notification. Say OK. And then when I am saving my Excel file, just as a reminder, File Save As, select your save location, but you're going to make sure that your save type is an Excel macro-enabled workbook. So you will be submitting a .xlsm file. Then you'll click on Save as always, Upload to Dropbox. I know there's a little bit of a lag in the middle of this video, but hopefully you were able to fast forward through it. And I thank you for your time and look forward to seeing your Week 11 lab assignments.